Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dad's 90th birthday party. Yay! And particular welcome to all those who have travelled long distances to get here. I think we have a full complement, pretty well much, of all the cousins, his nieces, his nephews, his in-laws, and of course all his really good friends. All of you are here, and we're really grateful you could make it. He's worn really well, hasn't he?
Yes.
And
I like the word worn.
yes, really well. It's so well, in actual fact, it's slightly worrying that he's actually got more hair than I have. Anyway, today is quite an important day because not only is it his 90th birthday party, it's his first birthday party. Oh. He's never ever had one before, so you're doubly honoured. Anyway, Dad, of course, was born in 1929 in this very house, and he's lived on the farm, of course, ever since. At a time when there was no water, there was no electricity, the privy was over there, a bit of a cold trip in the middle of winter. So he's seen huge change on the farm and in the village. When he was first born, it was horses. Now, of course, it's fully mechanised farming with sat-nav navigation and, of course, the advent of computers, which he's embraced. In fact, he's an early pioneer of being a first silver server on the planet, I believe. He was also very active in Young Farmers. Young Farmers, as you know, was an organisation that was national, and he was a member of Debenham Young Farmers and its chairman for a while. And it was during one of these Young Farmer dances that he met our mum, who inadvertently and accidentally sat in his lap.
Oh, yeah.
Now, we have a bit of a joke in our family that everybody must bring something useful to the family before they're allowed to marry into it. And in Mother's case, of course, she was a farmer's daughter in her own right. But crucially, her father was an agricultural pest controller for the ministry. And Dad obviously thought that would be a brilliant asset to his family. He married her. In 1955 this was, and they built the house across the pond. So they didn't actually have to move very far to enjoy family life. They've carried on all these years, and he's worked on the farm, and Anthony, of course, has worked with him. But I don't know too much about that, so I'm now going to pass the mantle over to Anthony to tell you about working with Dad.
The thing about that, before we go on to that, is that one of Dad's criteria was for giving us him a birthday party today was Christopher was not to do a long speech. It hasn't been that long. Bit of deja vu, mind. But and so therefore we thought, well, if we split it, perhaps we could get around that one slightly. So, what was life on the farm, or what has life been like on the farm with Dad? Well, as Christopher alluded to, we all have to bring something to the table, and from a very young age, we all had to work, and particularly at harvest time, to help bring in the harvest. And through working on the farm, by the time I was 16, I realised that, yes, I did want to be a farmer. So Dad was quite adamant that I was to go to college, so I went to Riddle Agricultural College, and 3 years later I came back with calculator in hand and said, right, pigs have got to go, cattle have got to go, the straw that they poo on is worth more than the animals themselves, chickens can stay. I just wondered whether perhaps he wondered whether it was such a good idea sending me through that. But anyway, hopefully he hasn't regretted that, and we have had a successful farming partnership for over 30 years. And he's been very encouraging. He's never stopped new ideas. If I've come up with, and I've come up with some silly ones. We tried worm farming once. Financially, there's no wiggle room in that. So we had to cast around for some new ideas. Sorry, they don't get any better. And so I've often been asked what it's like to work with Father. Well, there are two rules of working with Father: a very thick skin and selective hearing. And through those things, I have managed to work very well with him, and I hope he agrees that we have managed to work very well together for that length of time. Now, he would often get annoyed at me for not remembering things that we were doing on the farm. However, the table is slightly turned now because he gets annoyed with himself because he can't remember things. And so therefore, when we're busy doing work on the farm, I have to remember to tell him how things work, not the other way round, which seems slightly ironic after all these years, but that's the way it is. And it is quite remarkable what Dad does at the age of 90. For instance, last year he did the majority of the ploughing. He did pretty much all of the hedge cutting. He absolutely loves baling, and trying to keep him off that is he is desperately upset that he can't combine, and the only reason why he can't drive the combine is because he can't actually physically climb up into it. So he was devastated not being able to do that, and that, you know, makes him very frustrated. But there we go. So rather than me rambling on, I think it would be very appropriate to propose a toast to Father. So I'm hoping that you've all got a glass each, hopefully partly not fully charged. We will have a sing-song of Happy Birthday later on. So at this stage, we are just toasting Dad's very good health to Russell.
To Russell, I'll have to have some of yours.
Russell.
Now, just before we sit down, I would also like to propose one other toast, and that's just purely to absent friends. Now, just a little tiny bit of housekeeping. Shortly you'll be asked to take your seat at a table. We have done a table plan. If you don't like the person who's sitting next to you, you're quite free to move if you can find someone with. But we've done a very broad thing. It is a sit-down high tea, so everything will be brought to you. You do not need to get up and collect anything. It's all coming to you. So if your teapot is empty, just put your hand up and hopefully someone will come whizzing by with a fresh pot for you, okay? So, and if you feel free, if you do wish to move around between the tables, then please do so. So I think, without further ado, I think we're probably ready behind the scenes. So if you'd like to try and find